Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And today is like a beautiful fall Halloween day. It is windy. It's so windy outside. The little dogs were coming inside. They were like, oh, you don't want to be out here in the wind. I got up today, I did my meditations, I went in, got a coffee, ran some errands, and now I'm going to read a meditation to you. I've been reading from the other Melody Beatty book for the last couple days, but I received a message from Crystal. So, hello Crystal. You guys have been so wonderful lately with like the supportive comments and the messages. I really, really appreciate it. But Crystal sent me a message and said that she ordered The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty because she wanted to be able to have it to read with me when I did these Peterisms meditations with this book. So I was like, well, I haven't used this book in a couple days, so I'm going to read it today. And I just started reading the meditation. This is not actually one that I read this morning. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'll say what I think, and you guys can put in the comment sections what you think. Okay. Detaching with Love, October 20th. Sometimes people we love do things we don't like or approve of. We react, they react. Before long, we're all reacting to each other and the problem escalates. When do we detach? When we're hooked into a reaction of anger, fear, guilt, or shame. When we get hooked into a power play, an attempt to control or force others to do something they don't want to do. When the way we're reacting isn't helping the other person or solving the problem. When the way we're reacting is hurting us. Often, it's time to detach when detachment appears to be the least likely or possible thing to do. The first step toward detachment is understanding that reacting and controlling don't help. The next step is getting peaceful, getting centered, and restoring our balance. Take a walk, leave the room, go to a meeting, take a long hot bath, call a friend, call on God, breathe deeply, find peace. From that place of peace and centering will emerge an answer, a solution. Today I will surrender and trust that the answer is near. And I love this meditation so much because this is really what I've been practicing for the last, I would say 6 to 8 weeks. And if you've watched this channel on a regular basis or you've watched my vlog, you know that I've talked a lot about getting up in the morning and centering myself with my prayers, my affirmations, and my meditations. And she talks about that in here, the first step toward detachment is understanding that reacting and controlling don't help. The next step is getting peaceful, getting centered, and restoring our balance. I think that part for me of choosing not to engage in any kind of argument in my life, is that's a difficult lesson for me. That's been something that I've had to learn over time. It's not something that comes naturally for me, When my feelings are hurt, or I feel right, or I feel like I need to tell the truth, or, on somebody or on myself or whatever, like that's a hard place for me to be because I want to react instead of respond. And I've talked a lot about this on this channel, that I really believe that, responding in situations garners me a better solution in the long run. And while I'm sitting on trying to figure out what I'm going to respond to, the solution kind of happens at the same time, if that makes sense. And, I'm a big believer that there are lessons to the things that happen to us in life. If somebody hits you and you say ouch and you hit them back, in that 10 seconds or 5 seconds that it takes for that to happen, I don't know that I've learned any kind of lesson except for revenge or vengeance, right? So for me, if I get hit and then I sit on it for a second and I think to myself, wow, this person must think it's okay to hit me like that. Well, I'm not in that. That's really about that person. Or how do I want to respond? What do I want to speak of? What do I want my actions at this point to speak of? And that's where things that happen to me in life, I really don't have any control over that, but I have a lot of control over the way that I respond to things. So I do think that it's first deciding going forward in life, how are we going to choose to respond? Are we going to engage or are we not going to engage? Are we going to react or are we going to respond, And I think I've learned, but I'm not always great at this, I'm thinking about friends of mine, in the program, and even my husband and I, my best friend and I, and stuff like that when we we disagree with things. It's sometimes I'm biting my tongue, right? My sponsor has said to me, all of my sponsors that I've ever had have always said to me, and this is kind of a 12-step motto quote, but it's, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? And whenever I say this on my videos, there's always one person that's well, I'd rather be right. I'm not really sure at this point in my life. I'd rather be right. I would, happiness, positivity, peace, serenity, peace of mind, being able to go to bed at night, you know, with a clear conscience and a clear head, that is 10 times more important to me than being right. It just is, you know? And that's something I've had to learn over time. You know, back in the day, I really struggled with that question, you know? When I think back to myself in my, you know, mid to late 20s, it's like, there were many times that I really wanted to be right. It's just not that important to me today. My happiness, my overall happiness, the happiness of my friends, the happiness of my family, that's more important to me, you know? So I have to ask myself those questions in any situation that I'm going through. How do I want to respond to this? Do I want to engage? Do I not want to engage? And, you know, it's not always an easy question. I think if you're going through, you know, like a divorce or, you know, I don't know why I just thought of this situation, but like, you know, I have a lot of friends of mine that are divorced and and mostly women. So their ex-husbands, you know, are dating new women or they're remarried and, you know, they'll say things to me about like what the other person said and they'll say, oh, well, this person told my kids this or this person. And that's such a difficult situation, isn't it? You know, and I know my mom was very protective of me in that same situation too, but I think like, as parents, like, I think they want to react, you know, and it's like, sometimes I think you have to ask yourself, what is the overall best situation, you know? I'm very, very thankful with just like maybe a few situations, my parents rarely ever talked negatively about each other. I knew that they did not like each other, but they never talked negatively about each other much. I mean, I can think of like 1 or 2, 3 situations. In fact, you know, if I would say something negative about my dad, you know, my mom would say, don't ever speak to your father about your father that way. Like, you know, your father loves you a lot. He does a lot of nice things for you. You know, if I said something bad about my mom, my dad would the same way, very stern look, and he would say, you know, like, that's your mother. You don't talk about your mother that way, you know? And it's been, I think that for me formed kind of this idea of respect. And I feel so bad for my friends when they're going through this because I know they want to react. You know, and I'm like, hey, you know, you got to do what you got to do, but maybe just sit on it. Maybe try to talk to that person. Maybe, you know, try to have a conversation. I can't talk to that person. I can't talk to that person, right? And that's where we have to choose how we're going to react, how we're going to respond. Is our reaction going to make things worse for us? Ultimately, that's what the question is. You know, is the end game our happiness or our being right? Now, if it is a situation where somebody's being hurt or somebody's, you know, this is not, I'm not talking about something serious like that. Nothing like that, okay? That is a situation that is not meant for this video. Like, that's past a meditation in a Melody Beatty book, okay? I'm talking about situations where you're arguing with a friend or you're arguing with a coworker or you're arguing with, you know, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, ex, things like that. I think you have to ask yourself at the end, I have to ask myself, you know, what's my long-term plan here? What do I really want out of this long-term? Like, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? And if I want to be happy, are there ways for me to feel like I can get the end result that I want, which if that's maybe having conversations with people without arguing, then I've got to figure out how to get there. Or maybe sometimes it's just detaching with love and saying, you know what, I think it's just time for me to move on. And that's a great lesson to learn. I've had to do that with many people in my life through the years. And I'm sure some people have had to do it with me. You know, that's just how the world works. It's hard to do that. You know, people ask me all the time, like, well, if it's a family member, how do you detach with love? Well, detaching doesn't mean you leave that person forever. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have any interactions with them again, right? It just means you say, I love you as a human being. I realize that you have some flaws. I realize that you're going through this. Right now, I can't be super close to that, right? I still love you. I still care about you as a person. I can't be super close to that right now because it's negative and it's toxic to me. So I'm going to take care of myself. You take care of yourself. And you know, and often those people go crazy and they're like, what do you mean? And you don't care about me and whatever. And you're like, no. You say it once. You say it twice, you don't say it again. And then, you know, you kind of just move on with your life. And sooner or later, they get it, right? And then down the road, maybe you check back in and you're like, how's that relationship going? But you can sit at Christmas dinner and be completely civil to somebody. You don't have to argue with them, you know? And I've learned that a lot through my life. My mom and my aunt used to argue all the time. And I think it was because, like, there were pieces where they were very, very close, and they were very close in age, and so they argued a lot, right? But they could also sit and be completely loving towards each other, and, you know, so I think on that, and I don't have any siblings, but I think it has to be difficult at times, but I think that's a situation where, you know, I think both sides of that at times detached with love because they love the other person so much, but they knew that maybe in that moment that wasn't the person that they should be sitting next to at the Christmas dinner. You know what I mean? Like, we don't always have to, like my friend Tanya always says to me, don't dial up pain. You know, like, why call up somebody on the phone? I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's a slogan, but why call up somebody on the phone if you know you're just going to go through it? You know what I mean? It's like, maybe just leave it, detach with love, take care of yourself, and move forward. And if that person comes back and that, you know, they're there, then you can deal with it at that point, and you've been taking care of yourself, so you're better to handle that situation down the road. I love this meditation. I think it's fantastic. I've talked a lot about detaching from negativity and toxicity on this channel. It's very important to me in my life. You know, today in my life, it's important for me to have days of peace and happiness. It really, really is. That's paramount to me over anything else. So, I don't know, but that's a question that everybody has to ask themselves. What's the most important thing, you know? Do you want to be liked by 100 people, or do you want to be liked by 2 or 3 people that really matter to you, you know? And I think that's where you have to know who you are inside, and you have to take care of yourself. And that's where it's like, you know, in the meditation, which I have now completely lost, but at the end of it, she says, you know, once you figure out how you're going to respond, then the second part to that is take a walk, leave the room, go to a meeting, take a long hot bath, call a friend, call on God, breathe deeply, find peace. From that place of peace and centering will emerge an answer, a solution. And I believe that. I think the more we take care of ourselves, the more we really take care of ourselves, the more the answer for how we're supposed to respond to situations emerges. I love you guys. I hope you're having a great weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.